Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded by the Ways and Means Committee. If any other persons are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. In accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20G, no person shall address a meeting of a public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body. If after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting. If the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. Roll call. Councilor Bottomley.
Here.
Councilor Forgy.
Here.
Councilor Golub. Here. Councilor Toronzo.
Here.
And Councilor Disorder is present. And we have Director Schindler. Okay. All right. And I see the recorder is on. Righty. Next, we have approval of the minutes, and there are none. Public comment. Does anyone in the public wish to speak? If you do.
There's a waiting room person.
Oh, there's a waiting room person. Here we go. Admit. Okay.
Looking straight on instead of.
All right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move this over here as I'm doing this. I did this before, so to speak for the people on the right.
Jenny, you're on mute.
Are we good now?
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Did you have a public comment?
Actually, I would like you to vote no on the $100,000 CPA appropriation to the CSO project. I believe that money can be spent better elsewhere for our community, and they're already getting $21+ million for that project. I do not like what they did to the people in the current shelter, and I have a lot of personal experiences I could speak to as far as CSOs lack of attentiveness to their clients. So I'd ask you to reconsider that allocation of $100,000. I would actually think that we might be able to support some other departments with either a clerk or assistant clerks. I know that there are departments that requested some help, like the city clerk's office, the Board of Health. I've heard other requests. And if we're going to try and help forward this city, I think it's important to have the agency or the particular departments have the support that they need, even if it's only on a temporary basis. And I know that they don't, that the city does not like to fund salaries or the like with temporary funds like grants, but we're doing it for the police officers. So I would also like it to be considered a possibility for some of the other departments that are really in need of some clerical assistance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone
Oh, I'm sorry,
else?
I forgot to tell you my name, Stephanie Duclos, Greenfield, Mass. Thanks again.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? No, I'm not seeing anybody. So we are going to thank you very much. We're going to move forward then with what's next on the agenda. There's no public hearing. So next on the agenda is to appropriate $750 from CPA reserved for open space to fund the Greenfield High School track ADA access.
Waiting room.
Oh. I'll put it. Okay, into the waiting room. Okay, all right. I guess I'll read the order. That the order that the city council appropriate from CPA reserved for open space the sum of $750 to fund the GHS track ADA access as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. The amount requested will be used for a concrete connection path to provide access to the Greenfield High School track and spectator viewing area by the Greenfield Recreation Department.
Second.
Discussion on this. Okay.
Could I?
Yes.
Thank you. I would just like to say that what this committee is doing right now is really a formality in the process. That CPA was the one who made the recommendation. It is their money to spend. And because it involves money, it has to come through the council for approval. But this committee is made up of citizens. They work independently from us. They've made their decisions. So I would be very hard pressed to offer a decision that went against what they thought they wanted to do with their money. They are kind of an autonomous board.
Okay, any other general comments on that? To piggyback on that, there are requirements in the Community Preservation Act and as we adopted it, that so much is supposed to go in for housing, so much is supposed to go in for open space, and so much for historical. So anyways, back to the track.
And then there's the undesignated, right, which is
Yes,
kind of like
undesignated.
the wild card,
Right.
right?
But when it was adopted, I remember one of the biggest selling points was, when it was voted in, was people voted in because they were concerned about housing. That was one of the bigger things. But, all right. So the track, for any of you that watched that, or is familiar with it, there's an area where it's not connected. It was just an oversight from a paved pathway over to where people can sit. And if you have a mobility issue, it's difficult to access, to get there on the grass. If you had either a walking device or a wheelchair or something, you don't want to seek into it. And we want to make that track accessible and watching to everybody. Disability access, some money towards that. So any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next, ordered that the Greenfield City Council appropriate for CPA undesignated the sum of $75,500 to fund the Beacon Park Improvements Project as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. The amount requested will be used for the installation of 2 new bocce courts and replacement of 2 water fountains at the Beacon Park by Greenfield Recreation Department.
Second that.
And discussion on this? None? Okay, all in favor? Okay. An order for the community preservation citywide outdoor amenities. Ordered that the Greenfield City Council appropriate from CPA undesignated the sum of $226.31 to fund citywide outdoor amenities as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. The amount requested will be used by the Greenfield Recreation Department for the installation of an interactive play amenities to be placed on recreation controlled property throughout the city.
Second that.
Okay? Discussion.
I'm curious what the interactive play amenities are, but that's more of a statement than a question.
Yeah, they had, I don't have that pulled up now, but I think they're there. If you, I could find them. for you at some juncture. Okay.
looking forward to seeing.
Yes, yes, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. An order for community preservation CSO shelter expansion that the Greenfield City Council appropriate from CPA reserved through community for community housing. The sum of $47,523.69 from CPA undesignated, and the sum of $52,476.31 for a total of $100,000 to be provided to the CSO Wells Shelter Expansion Project as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. The amount requested will be used for the expansion of the shelter at 60 Wells Street by clinical support options.
Second that.
Okay, discussion.
I'm wondering, could this money even be used for public health clerk?
No, and that, I'm glad that you said that because somebody in the community had brought that up as a concern. So although we don't have back and forth with the community, that was a really good question because somebody's watching us right now. And I thought there's, I was not happy that in our operating budget that there wasn't a clerk for the Board of Health Department, but there isn't any way that this money could go towards this. It's pretty specific in the Community Preservation Act, what it can be used for, and percentages that I don't have in front of me or in my brain right now. Percentages have to go to certain things that we said at the beginning. One of them is housing. So this is the only part of the expenditures that is going towards housing. Further discussion on this?
I'm apt to, I haven't heard about the challenges before. This is the first time I'm hearing about them with CSO, and I'm apt to think that expanding the shelter and the housing is important. I just follow-up question, given that the 52,000 is undesignated, I'm still assuming that CPA funds, undesignated CPA funds couldn't go to a clerk.
They could not.
Okay.
They could not.
Well, I just want to say I share the concern about not having that support in the operating fund. But given that these funds can't go there.
Might be room for a supplemental
Yeah,
request.
I would be very open to a supplemental request from the public health.
Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Ordered that the Greenfield City Council appropriate from CPA Reserve for Historic Resources the sum of $31,023.69 for the FCAS barn rehabilitation, as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. The amount requested will be used for the rehabilitation of cattle barn roofs at the Franklin County Fairgrounds by the Franklin County Agricultural Society.
Second that.
And further discussion. Did we let everybody see? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Me too. Okay. An order for the Community Preservation Highland Trail Restoration. that the Greenfield City Council appropriate from CPA reserved for open space the sum of $15,000 to fund the Highland Park Trail Restoration Project as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. The amount requested will be used for the renovation of trails in Highland Park and Temple Woods by the Greenfield Recreation Department with Kim OS. That's how you say her name.
I second it.
Okay. Discussion on this? Okay. All in favor? Aye. In order for the Community Preservation Historical Society document preservation, ordered that the Greenfield City Council appropriate from CPA reserve for historic resources the sum of $15,500 for the Historical Society document preservation project as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. The amount requested will be used by the Historical Society for the preservation of documents donated by the estate of Peter Miller.
Second.
Discussion.
Do you know what the documents are?
No, I don't know what they are. I do know he was a long-standing member of the Historical Society, and I don't know what they are, but please, by all means.
He was actually the town historian for a long time. Peter was very well known in the community. And I would say that a lot of his work were just not only documents, but photographs, material items, things of that nature. So that would be my guess, but he was the town historian.
Further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
An order for community preservation. Just want to make sure I get this one. That the Greenfield City Council appropriate from CPA reserve for historic resources the sum of $1,000 to the Museum of Our Industrial Heritage, MOIH, as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. The amount requested will be used for the restoration of antique shop equipment.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
An order for community preservation pickleball court expansion, ordered that the Greenfield City Council appropriate from CPA reserved for open space the sum of $7,773.69 from CPA undesignated, and the sum of $42,226.31 for the total of $50,000 for the Greenfield Pickleball Court Expansion Project recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. The amount requested will be used for design, engineering, and site readiness for a multi-court pickleball facility adjacent to the Abercrombie Field by the Greenfield Recreation Department with Greenfield Mass Pickleball. Discussion.
One question, is this, when it says design, engineering, and site readiness, does this mean like preparation to be able to have it? Or is it actually the creation of the pickleball facility? Like, will there be more requests for funding after this?
Yep.
Yes.
Initial preparation,
This is like everything before construction,
construction, okay, that's what it sounded like.
or maybe a little bit of partial construction with site readiness.
Site readiness.
If I could,
Yes.
background drop on this, was that the recreation director, Christy Moore, had asked for in the capital, the capital projects, vote and everything else, had asked for quite a substantial sum to go ahead and do the whole thing. And as it turned out, it was felt that it would be better for everybody to move forward with preliminary plans in place to understand what was going to happen before they voted a $200,000 to $300,000 sum of money to put into the pickleball courts. And this actually was brought forward by CPA when the other piece was actually not going to be funded. So they brought this forward to get this project up and running.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to add further that um, uh, this did have a lot of community support, and people actually came to the CPA meetings, dressed as pickles,
How many people?
a couple. And a couple of people, and it was actually worth, it was worth seeing. And yeah, very funny. You may be able to find something like that, about that on Facebook. But at any rate, I've seen the little captions of it, so
It was wildly popular.
Wildly
It really was wildly popular.
yes.
Question.
Um, There's a question.
I don't know how to see the entire chat. I have a question that might help as to why I asked for a clerical position for the Board of Health. The Board of Health has now been designated to deal with the homeless problem.
We allow questions?
So we're going to read that out loud so that we're not violating open reach law, I think so. But we're not going to write in the chat anymore after this, but why don't you read that aloud? So that everybody can hear, because I like that.
Okay, so there's a question from the public. I have a question that might help as to why I asked for a clerical position for the Board of Health. The Board of Health has now been designated to deal with the homeless problem.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's finish the vote on the pickleball and the fitness center, and then we can either decide to talk or not talk about the answer to that, okay? All right. So we were just about ready to vote on the 50,000 for design for pickleball courts.
Second that. I
Okay,
hadn't already got.
all right. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. An order for community preservation Shattuck Park Fitness Cluster. The last one. Ordered that the Greenfield City Council appropriate from CPA reserve for open space the sum of $24,000 to fund the Shattuck Park Fitness Cluster as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. The amount requested will be used for the installation of a fitness cluster at Shattuck Park by the Greenfield Recreation Department.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion about this? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So I actually do appreciate community involvement in this, and we did have a question from that. People have to come forward. People have to come forward to the CPA with specific things that they're asking for. And it's I don't know how many month process, but that wasn't on the docket, or nobody requested anything else like that to answer the question that was brought up by a resident. So that isn't something that we can make a change in. These things are thoroughly vetted, and if people have concerns when CPA is there, that would be the time to discuss that, I think. And certainly that's a valid point about what's needed by another department. And, but that's not within our purview for tonight. Is that fair enough? Do you think I explained that well enough? It's okay. All right. Okay, so we approved all of that. Now let me just look and see what else we have on our agenda. Continued deliberations and recommendations for the fiscal year 2024 operating budget if needed. I believe that we had finished our recommendations and that tomorrow night we will meet with full council. Does anybody have anything else? I wasn't going to beat that again. I mean, not going there again.
We'll have plenty of fun with it tomorrow night.
Yes. Okay. So in other business, one of our counselors is still looking for the audit. This for Director Schindler. I ended up getting a hard copy of the audit. I don't know. I didn't even look in the drive before coming.
It is in the
It
drive.
is in the drive.
Yeah,
I just
That's just might be me.
searched.
I couldn't find it.
Okay.
Find
I
it
can
there.
show you how I found it.
Yeah.
Just afterwards.
Okay.
Okay,
Sometimes the way it pops up is like the suggested versus the chronological. I'm a chronological person
Yeah.
for that, and it.
right.
I searched by the word audit and I couldn't even, it didn't even pop up.
Okay.
Right.
The most important page you should go to first is the findings.
Yeah, the management letter.
Right, the management letter, yeah,
Right. That's what I was going for.
Yeah. yeah. And then the other stuff will fill in.
Right.
So any, all
That could be my naivety with Google.
right, so maybe, so someone who has that open can show that to Mike before, maybe before we close.
Yeah.
Um,
I can just,
Yeah.
I can just do it afterwards.
After.
Okay, it's fine. That's fine. Our next meeting of Ways and Means is gonna be, oh goodness, June 20th.
Wow.
Oh, you know what, I wanted to say one other thing before we go to that, on other business. That, actually, just talking about the dates of when we do this, I'm looking at June, and we actually could have been doing our budget in June. Is that correct?
Say again, I'm sorry.
This is just for discussion. We could have been doing our budget in June. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I'm speaking to the former mayor here, that actually could have been moved up till June, and that, I just wanted to have that out open, and that we could have done the capital projects at a later time too. Is that right?
Yes. However, the charter was changed at some point between when I left office back in 2009 and currently. So the language in the charter says that beginning November 1, we have to have the capital improvement has to meet, which, going back to when, to my tenure, we always started at January. And I think that my opinion, the particulars here are that November 1 is way too early because you have to present your budget. I believe it's 190 days. Let me see. It has to go back. Let me see. If we count back from our voting in May on the budget, go back 190 days, I believe it is, 160 days. I think it's 190 days. Generally speaking, what I'm saying is that most cities and towns in the Commonwealth have their budget meetings in June. It could be any time in June, or it could be the 11th hour in June. But for some reason, our charter was changed so that everything would start in November rather than, say, January, which skews the timeline and makes the budget happen in May. And if you're aware of things that happen within the Commonwealth, a lot of organizations have their annual meetings and things like that in May. So to me, it's a bit problematic. It's also problematic in the fact that you're starting with a capital improvements committee in November. And then every other year, the council switches counselors and they reelect new chairs of the committee. So there's an inconsistency. You get a former Ways and Means person doing the capital improvement project and bringing, and voting on that, when in January, there's new chairs of Ways and Means, and they're kind of stuck with what was left by the other Ways and Means chair. So I see it as a better option for continuity, but it is going to take a charter change.
So what would you propose for the timeline?
My proposal, and again, it has to be a charter change, and my proposal would be that we have the annual meeting in June, and then we count back the 190 days. And if it gets us, say, to, I'm just going to throw, I don't know this.
Before 90, that would put us back before the beginning of the year.
Yes, it does put us, 190 days puts us back before the beginning of the year, which is why it says starting November 1. But if it did,
Oh, you said we lowered the amount of days.
right, no, whatever you're saying, it must be 160, whatever, or 120. Diana, it's 120, thank you, it's
I would say
120.
180 days instead of.
Right, okay. So 120 days, if we went back from June to 120 days, we get borderline December, January, which makes it consistent with the new Ways and Means Chair, people that will be serving on capital improvement, and then it makes the budget go into June, which to me, I think is better. My opinion, it's just better. My experience, it was just better. So,
I agree. It gives time for the new organization to happen and to select the new
yeah.
brood of, folks that are.
So you're not feeling like, oh God, I didn't know what he or she did beforehand, I have to catch up and figure that out. And then
Yeah.
you may not agree with that as the new chair of Ways and Means. So I'm just looking for it to happen in a timeframe that is based on consistency, but still leaves us enough room to vote the budget in June.
What has to happen to make the charter change?
Oh, well, that's a charter change where the city is charged to amend to the charter or change the charter or review the charter every year that ends in 0. So it's every 10 years.
Yes.
To get a charter change in between that would take legislative action. You would have to have language drafted. You would have to present it to council. The mayor would have to approve it. And then it would have to be sent off to Boston for approval as well. So it could be a long drawn out process, or because it's just one charter change instead of a total charter change, it could be handled hopefully when the legislature was in session. So
It seems like it would be kind of boilerplate if the predominance of, I don't know if it's a predominance, but at least enough other municipalities already have that. It seems like you could just kind of.
right. And it becomes, to me, it becomes evident when you see, like, this time of the year, like, I could tell you that, in my tenure, May is always a huge organizational piece for a lot, for police and fire and treasurer collectors. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Town clerks, they might come a little later. But anyway, there's this piece where a lot of the people that are involved in everything will be gone while this budget is being put in place if we leave it in the May slot. And I just find that really detrimental to the whole budget process. I think it's cleaner and smoother if everybody went to all their events, and then in June we voted the budget, so we knew that everybody would be here. The chiefs would be here, the mayor would be here, the treasurer, collector, accountant, Diana, they would all be here as well. Just seems to me to be cleaner. I don't know why it was changed. It wasn't changed when I was in office, but I just thought my experience, it just made things clean.
Well, I think it would be great if it was then, because we'd actually be much closer to seeing where we are
Yeah.
in June.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a great thing. And, I'd rather have that, entire capital project be later too, because these two are intersecting and getting in each other's, we're supposed to have enough after we voted on capital projects to run our operating. And I mean, the later we do that, the more interconnected you can see that they are. I think that I'm just looking at it does say within 60 days after it receives the proposed budget. So that ties us.
That ties us to
To
a
May.
date, correct?
And it's Kathy, always, just so you know, for running these meetings, Kathy leaves a copy of the charter right there in the bag. And the capital, I thought myself, I went through this. I mean, I was pretty
Yes.
sure I'd be chair of
Yes.
Ways and Means. And I thought, I'm hoping that I don't have recommendations that are coming from a committee that I haven't been a part of.
Yeah.
I thought that was, but it's also the earliness of it. And I thought the operating budget, that definitely involves a change. The capital, I kept reading the rules on it. I think we were allowed to do that later. But I'm not sure.
I think they would just end up crunching.
Yeah.
Yes.
Full disclosure, you have to understand that when I became mayor, there were 3-year terms.
Yeah.
So everybody served 3 years, mayor, council, they all served 3 years. So where we got kind of confused was when we made the change to 4-year terms for everyone at this point. And that was during Mayor Martin's tenure as mayor when that change was made. So basically, I believe that was probably when the November piece was put in, because now we have the council, half of the council basically turns over and half does not, because it's a 4-year term, whereas it was a little bit, one counselor or 2 counselors might leave or whatever, it might be their terms because they were staggered as well. So I just think my personal opinion is it makes more sense to me to have the annual meeting in June and then work backward from that to have everything sort of begin January 1. So again, council has got their chairs in place and the process can move forward with the same people, in the leadership roles moving it forward.
I also think it lends to getting a more clear indication, not only of our financial situation in the city, but the state's financial situation. Getting a lot more information in one more month as they get closer to finalizing the state. And that can lend to, even if there were, say, predictions or budgetary decisions made either in the first stages or in the second stages, by the time it gets to the final stage, there's a lot more information on that avenue as well that could contribute to situations like we're in now.
That's up to Ginny.
Can I?
Yes, you certainly may.
So I just want to say the charter actually does now, it doesn't allude to any November date. It just says that the mayor shall submit a capital improvement program to the city council at least 120 days before the start of each fiscal year. So there is no other reference or date referenced.
I did. Oh, I know where I saw it.
Unless it's not updated on the website, but this says that it was updated.
You're right.
I guess in 2020.
That's for the capital.
I saw it in the budget book. That's where I saw it.
But if I could just say, for the record, I think one of the things that also makes it very clunky in terms of timing is the 5-day rule and the timing of having to get the financial orders in too. So as far as I think you could change the timing of the capital planning and the budget, but I think just keeping in mind that right now, the way we do it is you have to kind of allow 2 months for the financial orders to get through the process. So even when I was writing the financial orders, there was one situation where Ginny had asked me, or somebody had asked me at a council meeting why I didn't use more money out of reserves, but the issue was when I wrote the financial order, the money wasn't even in there yet. So because it was 2 months before you're voting it. So there is sort of this, I'm finding that just from my own, timing of having to make sure we're getting the end of the year stuff done on time and everything getting in front of the council, because of that 5-day rule as well. So
It's a very good point, because actually we should maybe take the section about the financial rules and everything else. We did not do that. I was on the charter committee that reviewed our 10 years, and it's sitting in Boston somewhere waiting for supreme approval. But supreme, yes, it's there. It hasn't been voted on, and so none of those changes that we talked about, like adding another elected assessor There was another one that was pretty critical. I'm
I
forgetting.
think
what
you
it was.
did things with public safety.
Yeah, public safety was another one and everything else.
Seven,
Number of them, 7879 has a life of its own at this point.
Right.
But there are a lot of things that went forward and the mayor approved them and they went on to Boston and everybody's saying, will it be available by December? Because if we get a charter approval of what we did, then we have to have an election. We have to put it on the ballot in November. But the word came back to Kathy Scott that, don't hold your breath, it's not going to be out this year. So, yeah, so it's a long process. But again, another thing the council could possibly work on is all of those financial pieces to try to streamline this process and make it with all the people who started being the ones who end up voting instead of switching. I mean, that happens every year, but every other year it doesn't happen and it gets to be clunky and inefficient. So anyway, that's.
but point was taken also about the 5-day rule. I find that myself.
Yeah.
Sometimes with committee chairs, it could be that we're getting a notice from the clerk's office if you're a committee chair, and it would say, we haven't finished the budget process, and we like the last day for anything for committee chairs, and it's sometime in May when you've got your brain wrapped around
Brain is wrapped around.
whatever it is that you're into, and I think there are certainly merits to why you have that, so that nobody is slipping anything in without, knowing something's happening. But it's certainly getting in, I think, everybody's way, the 5-day rule. So that's a well taken point, Director Schindler. Very true. So that would be something, I think we have the chair of A&O and other members of A&O here, so it's something to think about for next, as we go forward.
Okay, I don't know that I have the ability right now to draft that, but if someone drafted that.
That would have to, what we would have to do is take it forward on the chairs.
Right.
It would have to go to a chairs meeting. As, here we go, as a request from a chair, Ways and Means perhaps, chair, to take it forward and ask the council to work on it. And then I'm going to say the language itself could be drafted, but I think you would need a lot of input from finance and DOR in order to make those changes. So I don't think it would be totally the council doing the drafting. I think it would probably be it would be legal that would be doing drafting. I mean, you could make an attempt at it and everything else, but.
You have to start with the word whereas. Or it's not legal.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, we're certainly well versed in getting legal opinions now, aren't we?
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely
Okay,
right.
on that happy note. Okay, on that happy note, our next meeting will be June 20th, 2023 at 6 PM. Be it here, via the city hall meeting room or Zoom hybrid, unless otherwise posted. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Oh, yeah, so moved.
Okay, and a second. Okay, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Okay, abstentions, noes? No, okay, see. All right, so we're gonna adjourn at 6:42 PM.